ExamPrep.School. Texas Lines Property and Casualty Insurance Exam. Exam code INSTX-PersPC55. There are 4 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. P&C insurance terms and related concepts. P&C policy provisions and contract law. Texas statutes and rules common to all lines. Texas statutes and rules pertinent to personal lines insurance. Types of casualty policies. Types of property policies. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Which of the following dwellings is eligible for coverage under an HO3 policy? A. A 60-year-old single-family residence with no farming operations. B. A 3-family home rented entirely to tenants. C. A mobile home on a leased lot in a private park. D. A farmhouse with an attached livestock barn. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because an HO3 policy covers 1 to 4 family dwellings used exclusively for residential purposes, including rental units, as long as there are no farming operations. Reason A is not correct. This option is wrong because HO3 eligibility does not impose an age limit on the dwelling. Reason C is not correct. This option is wrong because a mobile home must be insured under a specific form rather than an HO3. Reason D is not correct. This option is wrong because farming operations and structures used for agriculture are excluded under an HO3. Question 2, under Section 1 of an HO5 policy, which item would require a scheduled endorsement to be fully covered beyond the special personal property sublimit? A. Household silverware valued at $5,000. B. Electronic equipment valued at $10,000. C. Jewelry valued at $3,000. D. A firearm collection valued at $2,000. The correct answer is C. This option is correct because jewelry is subject to a $1,500 special personal property sublimit under Section 1, and values exceeding that limit require scheduling. Reason A is not correct. This option is wrong because household silverware has a $2,500 sublimit, so it is covered up to that amount without scheduling. Reason B is not correct. This option is wrong because electronic equipment does not have a special sublimit under an HO5 policy. Reason D is not correct. This option is wrong because firearms have a $2,500 sublimit, covering the stated value without the need to schedule. Question 3. Under an HO2 broad form policy, which of the following perils is insured against on personal property? A. Flood damage from surface water. B. Earthquake. C. Gradual deterioration from wear and tear. D. Collapse due to weight of ice, snow, or sleet. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because collapse from the weight of ice, snow, or sleet is one of the named perils covered under HO2, whereas earthquake, gradual deterioration, and flood are specifically excluded. Reason A is not correct. This option is wrong because flood damage from surface water is excluded under the named perils. Reason B is not correct. This option is wrong because earthquake is excluded under the HO2 named peril list. Reason C is not correct. This option is wrong because wear and tear is an exclusion under the perils insured. Question 4. After a chemical explosion at a nearby manufacturing plant, local authorities issue an order prohibiting residents from entering their homes. The explosion is a covered peril under the policy, and the insured incurs additional living expenses. Which condition must be met for coverage D, loss of use, to apply under the homeowner's policy? A. The insured's own dwelling must sustain direct physical damage before additional living expenses are covered. B. A covered peril must cause direct damage to a nearby property, prompting a civil authority order that prevents access to the insured dwelling. C. The civil authority order must be based on damage to the insured dwelling itself rather than neighboring properties. D. The inability to use the home must result from a civil authority order lasting at least 7 consecutive days. The correct answer is B. Coverage D for civil authority loss of use requires that a covered peril directly damage property other than the insured's, and that a civil authority order prohibits access to the insured dwelling as a result. Reason A is not correct. Coverage D does not require direct damage to the insured's own property. It applies when neighboring property is damaged by a covered peril. Reason C is not correct. The trigger is damage to adjacent property, not damage to the insured dwelling itself. Reason D is not correct. The duration of the order does not determine the trigger. Loss of use coverage is activated by damage to nearby property and the resulting prohibition of access. Question 5. Under a DP3 special form policy, which of the following water damage perils is specifically excluded in Section 1? A. Continuous or repeated seepage or leakage of water from the ground beneath the dwelling. B. Accidental overflow of water from a washing machine. C. Backup of water or sewage through a drain or toilet. D. Sudden and accidental rupture of a plumbing system inside the dwelling. The correct answer is A. The DP3 special form excludes damage caused by continuous or repeated seepage of groundwater into the dwelling. The other listed water perils are covered if sudden and accidental and not otherwise excluded. Reason B is not correct. An accidental overflow event, such as from a washing machine, is covered if it is sudden and accidental. Reason C is not correct. Backup of water or sewage through plumbing is a covered accidental water peril under DP3. Reason D is not correct. Sudden and accidental rupture of plumbing is covered under the accidental discharge water peril in DP3. Question 6. Which of the following perils is included in the standard extended coverage perils list under a DP2 broad form policy? A. Collapse due to earth movement. B. Volcanic eruption. C. Vandalism occurring after 60 days of vacancy. D. Backflow of sewage into the dwelling. The correct answer is B. Volcanic eruption is one of the named extended coverage perils automatically included under DP2 broad form. The other listed perils are excluded or must be added by endorsement. Reason A is not correct. Collapse from earth movement falls under earth movement exclusions and is not covered as an extended coverage peril. Reason C is not correct. Vandalism after prolonged vacancy is excluded in DP2 unless a special endorsement is purchased. Reason D is not correct. Backflow of sewage is a water damage exclusion and not part of the extended coverage perils. Question 7. A homeowner's dwelling is insured under a DP3 policy with a replacement cost loss settlement endorsement that requires at least 80% coinsurance. At the time of loss, the dwelling's replacement cost is $160,000 and the policy limit is $120,000, 75% of replacement cost. A covered loss causes $30,000 in repair costs, and the dwelling's age results in $5,000 of depreciation. Under the terms of this policy, how much will the insurer pay? A. $30,000, the full replacement cost of the damage. B. $25,000 initially, with the remaining $5,000 paid after repairs are completed. C. $22,500. Replacement cost minus a 25% coinsurance penalty. D. $25,000, the actual cash value, since the coinsurance requirement was not met. The correct answer is D. The policy's replacement cost endorsement is void when the 80% coinsurance requirement is unmet, so the insurer pays only the actual cash value, $30,000 minus $5,000 depreciation. Reason A is not correct. Full replacement cost does not apply because the coinsurance requirement was not satisfied, so depreciation must be deducted. Reason B is not correct. The endorsement does not allow for additional payment after repairs if the coinsurance requirement was unmet. Only actual cash value is payable. Reason C is not correct. There is no proportional coinsurance penalty calculation under this endorsement. It simply reverts to actual cash value when coinsurance isn't met. Question 8. Under the Standard National Flood Insurance Program policy, after submission of a complete application and payment of the initial premium, flood insurance coverage for a residential structure becomes effective after what minimum waiting period? A. 30 calendar days. B. 15 calendar days. C. 60 calendar days. D. 90 calendar days. The correct answer is A. Coverage under a standard NFIP policy for residential properties begins 30 days after a completed application and initial premium payment. Other timeframes do not match the NFIP's specified waiting period. Reason B is not correct. A 15-day period is shorter than the NFIP's required minimum waiting period of 30 days. Reason C is not correct. A 60-day period exceeds the standard NFIP waiting period, which is set at 30 days. Reason D is not correct. A 90-day waiting period is longer than the NFIP's specified 30-day requirement. Question 9. Under the National Flood Insurance Program's emergency program, what is the maximum building coverage limit available for a single-family dwelling? A. $35,000. B. $25,000. C. $50,000. D. $100,000. The correct answer is A. The NFIP emergency program provides a building coverage limit of $35,000 for single-family dwellings. Other amounts either fall below or exceed the program's specified cap. Reason B is not correct. A $25,000 limit is lower than the emergency program's specified $35,000 building cap. Reason C is not correct. A $50,000 amount exceeds the emergency program's maximum building coverage limit of $35,000. Reason D is not correct. A $100,000 limit far exceeds the emergency program cap for single-family dwelling buildings. Question 10. A homeowner's earthquake endorsement carries a 15% deductible on the dwelling limit of $285,000. After an earthquake causes $72,345 of structural damage, how much will the insurer pay under the endorsement? A. $43,845. B. $58,095. C. $29,595. D. $72,345. The correct answer is C. The deductible is 15% of $285,000, which equals $42,750. Subtracting that deductible from the $72,345 loss leaves $29,595 in payable loss. Reason A is not correct. This calculation used a 10% deductible instead of the required 15%. Reason B is not correct. This result reflects applying a 5% deductible rather than the specified 15%. Reason D is not correct. This amount ignores the deductible, treating the loss as fully covered without a deductible reduction. Question 11. Which of the following sets of liability limits best represents the mandatory minimum coverage required for private passenger autos in Texas? A. $20,000 bodily injury per person. $40,000 bodily injury per accident. $15,000 property damage. B. $50,000 bodily injury per person. $100,000 bodily injury per accident. $25,000 property damage. C. $25,000 bodily injury per person. $50,000 bodily injury per accident. $20,000 property damage. D. $30,000 bodily injury per person. $60,000 bodily injury per accident. $25,000 property damage. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is the Texas statutory minimum liability limits of $30,000 per person bodily injury, $60,000 per accident bodily injury, and $25,000 property damage per accident. Reason A is not correct. These limits correspond to lower statutory requirements in other states and do not meet Texas's minimum. Reason B is not correct. These higher limits exceed the minimum required and are not the statutory baseline in Texas. Reason C is not correct. This set swaps numbers and does not match Texas's mandatory 30/60 divided by 25 requirement. Question 12. Under the standard personal auto policy, for how many days is liability coverage automatically provided for a newly acquired private passenger auto? A. 4 days. B. 7 days. C. 14 days. D. 30 days. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is 14 days, which is the automatic period that liability coverage extends to a newly acquired vehicle under the standard PAP. Reason A is not correct. 4 days is the automatic period for medical payments or PIP coverage, not liability. Reason B is not correct. 7 days is not a standard automatic coverage period under the PAP. Reason D is not correct. 30 days exceeds the automatic liability period and typically requires an endorsement. Question 13. Under Part A, liability coverage of the standard personal auto policy, which individual would qualify as a family member? A. A minor placed in the insured's home by a child welfare agency, living there full-time. B. A companion unrelated to the insured who resides in the household. C. A dependent granddaughter who stays with the insured only on weekends. D. An aunt related by marriage who lives in a different city. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is a minor placed by a child welfare agency and residing full-time in the household, which qualifies as a ward under the family member definition. Reason B is not correct. An unrelated companion does not meet the relative requirement. Reason C is not correct. Occasional weekend visits do not constitute residing in the household. Reason D is not correct. Living outside the household disqualifies even a relative by marriage. Question 14. A Texas personal auto policy has split liability limits of $30,000 per person and $60,000 per accident. The insured drives in New York where required minimum liability limits are $50,000 per person and $100,000 per accident. Under the policy's out-of-state coverage extension clause, if the insured causes bodily injury totaling $120,000 to two individuals, how much will the insurer pay? A. $60,000. B. $100,000. C. $120,000. D. $50,000. The correct answer is B. The out-of-state coverage extension clause raises both per person and per accident limits to meet the higher state requirement. So the insurer will pay up to the $100,000 per accident limit in New York. Reason A is not correct. This reflects the original per accident limit but ignores the extension that raises limits to meet the higher state requirement. Reason C is not correct. This reflects the full loss amount, but coverage is capped at the higher state required per accident limit rather than the total loss. Reason D is not correct. This reflects only the per person limit, but the accident limit governs total payment for multiple injuries. Question 15. After a heated argument, an insured intentionally drove into a pedestrian, causing serious bodily injuries. Under the policy's Part A exclusions for intentional injury, what coverage will the insurer provide? A. Defend and indemnify for the injury. B. Defend but deny indemnity for the injury. C. Deny both defense and indemnity for the injury. D. Indemnify but deny defense for the injury. The correct answer is C. Part A of a personal auto policy excludes coverage for any intentional bodily injury, so the insurer will neither defend nor indemnify the insured for an intentional act. Reason A is not correct. Liability coverage applies only to accidental or negligent acts, not intentional wrongdoing. Reason B is not correct. The exclusion removes both defense and indemnity. The insurer cannot defend only. Reason D is not correct. Defense costs are also excluded for intentional acts. The insurer cannot indemnify alone. Question 16. Under Texas Insurance Code, Section 1952.107, personal injury protection coverage in a personal auto policy must provide a minimum limit of which amount per injured person? A. $1,000 per person. B. $2,500 per accident. C. $5,000 per person. D. $2,500 per person. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because Texas Insurance Code Section 1952.107 requires a minimum of $2,500 of PIP coverage per injured person. Reason A is not correct. That amount is below the statutory minimum for PIP coverage in Texas. Reason B is not correct. This misstates the basis of the limit as per accident rather than per person. Reason C is not correct. That amount exceeds the minimum requirement, but is not the mandated floor level. Question 17. Under Texas personal injury protection requirements, medical expenses must be incurred within how many days of the accident to qualify for PIP benefits? A. 7 days. B. 60 days. C. 30 days. D. 14 days. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because Texas PIP regulations require that medical expenses be incurred within 14 days of the accident to be covered. Reason A is not correct. This shorter period is not specified in the Texas PIP incurral requirement. Reason B is not correct. This period exceeds the maximum days allowed for expense incurral under PIP rules. Reason C is not correct. This longer time frame exceeds the statutory limit for qualifying PIP medical expenses. Question 18. After finalizing a Texas personal auto policy, the named insured verbally told the insurer they wish to reject personal injury protection coverage, but no signed written rejection was obtained. Following a covered accident, the insurer denies PIP benefits. Under Texas law, what is the effect of failing to obtain a written rejection? A. The insurer may choose to pay benefits but is not obligated to provide PIP coverage. B. The named insured can submit a written rejection up to 30 days after the loss to waive PIP. C. Personal injury protection coverage remains in force due to the absence of a valid written rejection. D. Medical payments coverage automatically applies in place of PIP benefits. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that PIP coverage remains in effect because Texas law requires a signed written rejection. A verbal refusal does not waive mandatory PIP benefits. Reason A is not correct. An insurer cannot make payment voluntary when a valid written rejection is missing. PIP remains mandatory. Reason B is not correct. Texas law does not allow a post-loss written rejection. The absence of pre-issuance written rejection means coverage continues. Reason D is not correct. Medical payments coverage is optional and does not replace mandatory PIP when a proper waiver is not executed. Question 19. When settling a collision loss on a 6-year-old vehicle under a Texas personal auto policy, the insurer applies the actual cash value settlement basis. Which formula correctly describes how the insurer calculates the ACV for the damaged vehicle? A. Stated value in the policy less the deductible. B. Market value at the time of loss without any depreciation adjustment. C. Replacement cost new minus depreciation. D. Cost to repair the vehicle minus its depreciation. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that collision coverage pays actual cash value, defined as replacement cost new minus depreciation, before applying the deductible. Reason A is not correct. Stated value pertains to agreed value policies, not the actual cash value basis for collision coverage. Reason B is not correct. Market value without depreciation adjustment overstates ACV and does not reflect standard formula. Reason D is not correct. Actual cash value is not based on repair cost minus depreciation, but on replacement cost minus depreciation. Question 20. Many insurers require a minimum underlying liability limit on the homeowner's policy before issuing a personal umbrella. What is the most common per occurrence limit required on a homeowner's liability policy to qualify for a personal umbrella policy? A. $100,000 per occurrence. B. $300,000 per occurrence. C. $500,000 per occurrence. D. $1 million per occurrence. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is a $300,000 per occurrence liability limit on the homeowner's policy, as this threshold is widely adopted by carriers before issuing a personal umbrella. Reason A is not correct. A $100,000 limit falls below common underwriting requirements and would not satisfy the minimum threshold. Reason C is not correct. A $500,000 limit exceeds the typical starting requirement and thus is higher than the minimum most insurers mandate. Reason D is not correct. A $1 million limit greatly surpasses standard minimums and is not commonly required for initial umbrella eligibility. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below. We read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.